Back home, the brutal rape and murder of an 18-year-old lesbian woman in Ventersdorp in the northwest has once again thrown open discussion on hate crime in South Africa. Disebo Makau was raped and murdered near home by a male friend last week, sparking public outrage. Well, her family says the incident reverses the country's efforts to fight against hate crime and is sad that the incident occurred in Women's Month. The gay and lesbian community, together with members of the Ventersdorp community, have called on the justice system not to be lenient. Well, for more, we're joined in studio by Mbuyiselo Botha. He's the Government and Media Relations Manager at Sonke Gender Justice. Good afternoon, Mr. Botha, and thank you for your time on the PM News Desk.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having us.
Well, crucial to the issue is an understanding of LGBTI rights and what they encompass.
Yes, it's freedom of right, freedom of association, and all of these freedoms that all of us are entitled to as human beings in South Africa. That because you are gay, because you're lesbian, there is nothing that should, in fact, make you feel unwanted in this country, because these rights are enshrined in our constitution.
How serious is South Africa about gay rights now, Mr. Botha? We do seem to be walking a fine line between strong constitutional commitment to protecting these sorts of rights, but then we have to balance this in solidarity, which is in reality a largely homophobic Africa. We have something like 38 out of Africa's 55 states which criminalize homosexuality.
Well, I think we're not doing quite well in Africa, but this is a worldwide phenomenon. What makes it more peculiar with us is the brutalization, the mutilation, the murder of people that are gay or lesbian. But I think what you're raising about the Constitution and what may be seen happening on the ground are two different things. That's why it's important for all of us.
Because we do have a very progressive Constitution. We were the first country in the world to prohibit discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation. We also have a Constitution that legalizes same-sex marriages.
Yes.
Well, on paper, it does seem that we're exemplary. We're doing a great job when it comes to protecting gay rights. But is this actually translating into foreign policy, Mr. Botha, when it comes to the Ugandan issue and the anti-gay bill? Would you have liked to see a more robust response from the South African government? We did take a kind of quiet diplomacy approach to this one.
And I think understandably so. I think South African government, you find yourself in a difficult position, because on the one hand, there is a perception, real or perceived, by some African countries that you want to be the world or Africa police, and then you see people, you'd be resentful. But on the other hand, I think South Africa then chooses what you do. It's a very complex thing. You then take the middle ground. Do you go out and speak, condemn your allies or publicly, or you do what is called silence, diplomacy, where you cajole, you persuade. It's a very difficult balancing act, because then the question is, I would imagine what our foreign policy would be saying is, what do you want to achieve? Do you want to achieve populism? Do you want to achieve or by being quiet, by persuading?
Yes, and of course, Pretoria always regards Uganda as a key ally in finding peace in the Great Lakes region. But moving on, violent crimes against gays and lesbians, we don't have the actual figures at hand. But what's the sense of the scale, the magnitude, and the impact of these crimes?
Well, I think it's very high. But it's not only we talk about it when there are murders, but it's also the homophobic language.
Yes.
It's also the mindset. So it's widespread in our country. We know of the homophobic jokes, which directly leads to very sad consequences, that people are being killed. So one can say that we are not doing well on the ground. That's why all of us, this is not only a government thing, because government can do so much that you and you would need an active citizenship. Absolutely.
Of course.
You would need people to, in fact, the Constitution should actually be, should recite it so that people even understand that, it's not only a paper that's written there. It's actually, all of us must live what this Constitution, cajoles us to do.
Yes, as a nation, of course, we don't yet have dedicated hate crime legislation. What's the delay, Mr. Botha?
Well, I think the delay is consultation, and which I think also may be problematic, is because even within the gay lesbian movement, there are these disagreements, and I think it's important that we would say that organizations that work within the LGBTI should actually find one voice and speak in unionism, so that we're able to say to government that speed up this legislation.
But of course, creating a legal framework or a legal category for hate crimes will not necessarily get rid of these crimes happening at all. The problem actually runs far deeper. How accurate is this to say that this is an issue that comes down to education and awareness, and that LGBTI people are people just like everyone else, and sexual orientation is natural and not a choice?
I think the operative word what you have just used, it's education, education, education.
Yes.
Because you see, if you ask me, why do we have murders of gays and lesbians? It's because of what we call the so-called gender norm or gender order. That, you know what, there is what is called normal, there's what is called abnormal. And I think until as a country we're able to say, look here, I mean, it's pointless to even force people that are born as gays and lesbians to even think or behave like what so-called normal behavior. So it's about how do we as a country educate each other continuously, and it's about the mindset.
Thank you, Mr. Botha. I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there. We are out of time. Always a pleasure having you on the PM News Desk. Moving on to other